Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep behind the scenes, past the glossy interface, to look at the powerful, invisible engine that runs basically every single app you use, the backend. All right, so last time we were here, we talked all about the front end, right? You know, the beautiful design, the buttons you click, the text you read, basically everything you can see and interact with. It's the face of the app. But have you ever really stopped to think about what happens after you click that button? When you hit login or add to cart, where does all that information actually go? And how does the app magically know what to show you next? Well, that's where the real story begins. We're about to jump into that hidden world. This is the invisible engine, the place where all the heavy lifting happens, completely out of sight. So what even is the back end? The easiest way to wrap your head around it is to think of a restaurant. If the front end is the dining room, the tables, the menus, the decor, then the back end is the entire kitchen. It's the chefs, the recipes, the storeroom with all the ingredients. It's the whole operation that actually makes the food. It's where the real work gets done. So, let's get a little more specific. What does it actually mean to build and run that kitchen? Well, welcome to the world of back-end development. A back-end developer is focused on all the core stuff. They're writing the actual logic of the app, they're managing the giant databases that store all the information, and they build these things called APIs to let everything talk to each other. And maybe most importantly, they're in charge of security, keeping your data safe, and making sure the whole system doesn't just fall over and crash when millions of people try to use it at once. To really get it, you can break the backend down into three main components. I like to think of them as the three pillars holding everything up. Pillar number one is the server. Now, this isn't some dusty computer in a closet anymore. Think of a massive network of powerful computers out there in the cloud. This is where the back-end code actually lives and runs. It's the raw computing power that's available 24/7 to handle every request that comes in. The second pillar is the application itself. This is the brain of the whole operation. It's all the code running on that server that contains the rules, the business logic. It knows how to process a payment, what to do when you like a photo, or how to go find a specific piece of information. And that brings us to pillar number three, the database. This is the application's long-term memory. Every single piece of data, your user profile, your password, every product in a store, every social media post, it's all stored and organized right here. The application is constantly talking to the database to save new info and pull out old info. Okay, so we've got the front-end dining room and the back-end kitchen, but how in the world do they talk to each other? Well, that's where something amazing comes in, the API, which is kind of like a universal translator for software. An API, that stands for Application Programming Interface, is really just a set of rules that lets different pieces of software communicate. The best analogy, sticking with our restaurant, is that the API is the waiter. It takes your order, your request, from the front end, runs it back to the kitchen, and then brings the result right back to your table. And this whole thing follows a super clear cycle. Your phone or browser sends a request. The API grabs it and sends it to the server. The application figures out what to do, maybe grabbing some data from the database. Then the server packages it all up in a neat little response and sends it back through the API to your screen. And this entire round trip, it happens in the blink of an eye. Of course, none of this matters one bit if the system isn't secure. Protecting our data and controlling who gets to see what is without a doubt one of the most critical jobs of the back end. And a really key concept here is the difference between identification and authentication. See, identification is just claiming who you are, like typing in your username. That's easy. Authentication is proving it by giving a password, using your fingerprint, or entering a code from your phone. The back end is the bouncer that checks your ID and makes sure you are who you say you are. To do this, developers follow some really strict rules. They make sure your password is never ever stored as plain text. Instead, they use these complex hashing algorithms to basically scramble it into unreadable gibberish. They set up rules so you can only see your data, not someone else's, and they are constantly scanning for weak spots to protect against attacks. All of your security is handled right here on the back end. So even though you never see it, you never touch it directly, the back end is truly the foundation of every single modern app we use. A really well-built backend is what separates an app that can handle millions of users from one that just completely collapses on launch day. It's what makes a service fast, reliable, and always there when you need it, no matter how much traffic it's getting.
Ultimately, the goal isn't just about writing code for the sake of writing code. It's about engineering systems that are strong, efficient, and resilient. Systems that solve real problems for real people, securely and reliably.
So we've covered the front end, the face of the application. And now we've covered the back end, which is its brain. And that brings up a really interesting question. What do you call someone who can master both? They're known as full stack developers. And in our next explainer, we're going to find out exactly what that means. See you then.